All right, welcome to the Money Room. We appreciate y'all for tapping in. This is an educational real estate investing platform where we're going to share with the world our years of experience, knowledge, and resources of us closing a bunch of deals with various real estate investing strategies where we've been successful. We made a lot of money. And with the purpose of this podcast is for others to learn from us and be just as successful or even more successful than us with real estate investing.
I'm Marley. My primary real estate strategy is wholesaling.
What's going on? I'm Ant. My primary real estate investment strategy is the BRRRR strategy.
All right, I'm Lem, and my primary real estate investing strategy is mobile home investing.
All right, so on today's episode, right, we're going to get into questions, right? We all get a lot of
Yes.
questions. People always DM me, Marley, Lem, asking questions, some good questions, some bad questions. Yesterday, we're going to figure it out, answer some of y'all questions to the best of our abilities.
For sure.
All right, I guess so the first question we got from the audience, right, is in regards to credit, right? I had someone reach out basically that asked, how do you get your credit right if you don't have if you don't have credit up front or you don't have the funds up front to execute a deal?
Okay.
So how do you get your credit right? So I feel like that's a two-part question. Condas.
Well, I
Right.
think the question is, I guess, what resources you should utilize if you don't have
The funds. Like, how do you use
Yeah.
credit,
Okay.
to purchase a deal if you don't have the upfront funds?
Yes.
All right. I'm more so utilizing my skill set, but since y'all utilizing credit, go ahead, Ant.
Molly, what you got?
So I brought a house where I liquidated a credit card.
Okay.
Like I built up my credit, my business credit. I liquidated a credit card, and then I transferred that into a checking account, which I was able to withdraw the money from that. It was like a $20,000 credit card, and then like a $10,000 credit card, which it's called a balance transfer, and that allowed me to transfer that balance to like my checking account. It's a bunch of ways you got to do it, but then I withdrew the money. That way, I had to come to the closing table with like 15,000, and that's how I was able to purchase that property from using that balance transfer from that credit card. And then I went to the table. That's how people, when they say buying houses with credit cards, you can't swipe at the closing table.
Right.
You gotta have cash. You know what I mean? So balance transfer. Then I was able to, that's liquidating that credit card, and I was able to use that money to buy the house. So that's how I interpreted that question.
Okay.
I've done something similar with a credit card, but I did like a cash advance. So I had a deal I was putting together, right? I needed like roughly like 25. I had a angel investor come in and provide about 15. I was short like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a credit card, more or less, right? Like was buying like 3 properties at the same time. That's the reason why I was short on cash. That additional like 10, I got a cash advance and I was able to transfer that money into my checking account. And then, like you said, get a cash check, or I might have did a wire, either or, right? To pay the closing costs. And then when I refied on the back end, right? Like you carry the interest.
Right.
For me, like I usually have to refinance. I try to refinance at the 90-day mark, which is also known as seasoning. Some lenders require 60, and that seasoning period is more or less the time in which has to elapse between when you could purchase a house and refinance if you're using a BRRRR. Free game for y'all. But at that 90-day mark when I refinanced, I paid off the balance on the credit card.
What I can say about that though, when you're using your credit, bro, be wise about it. Because a lot of people teaching buy the house with credit, this, that, and the third. You got the overhead. So say you liquidate that credit card, you got an overhead every month. So say you liquidate it for $20,000. Say your overhead is 300 to 500. You got to make sure you pay that every month. So just like with you fixing the house up and then you're going to refi. Say that whole process take 6 months. You got to know that you got to cover whatever overhead you got with yourself on top of that credit card balance every month. You got to cover that.
Yeah.
So they don't talk about that, you know what I mean, that you got to pay that money back on top of carrying that overhead. So that's what I just be safe and cautious when you using these credit cards and buying properties or whatever you're doing, with your journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, maintaining credit is definitely like a skill, right?
Mhm.
It requires like, I guess, like being responsible and making sure, like you said, you have to liquid being able to do so. But it's also something that let me back up. If you have credit, right, it'll definitely open up a lot of resources and give you the opportunity to borrow a lot of money. But I guess like if you're not on top of those payments, is an easy thing to kind of mess up.
Right.
And then for a lot of people, once you start messing it up, it's like a spiral. Some people
Take
could
you
never
out the
recover
game
from
real
it.
quick.
So,
Yeah.
and definitely is a thing. For me, I guess in regards to credit and the BRRRR strategy, right? Because I'm acquiring a property, rehabbing it, renting it, and then refinance, right? So as far as the acquisition, I need credit, right? I'm at a I guess a place within my real estate investment journey where like my lender that my Harmony lender that I typically use to acquire properties, he's not pulling my credit like when we close deals, right? Because we've built that rapport. Like I've at this time, like I've closed more than 10 deals with him, so we're not consistently doing credit pulls every time,
Talk
right?
heavy.
I kind of just shoot him a deal. This is where I'm at. If he agrees on a number, then we good. If not, he'll ask for appraisal. But for the most part, I've kind of built a solid enough reputation with him where the credit part is not really the biggest deal. But on the back end, when I do refinance, right, like they're pulling credit. So I guess one thing I would suggest, I guess to the audience, if you're someone, most lenders are going to require anywhere from I've seen as low as 620, and I've seen between 620 and 640. I feel like it's usually the barrier, right? The low barrier
Mm-hmm.
in order to get like a 30-year fixed, right? For DSCR loans, right? If you don't have that, then I would say I probably would recommend either go to a company that's gonna offer something lower, maybe like a 580, but they're gonna kill you. Well, not kill you, but they're gonna offer higher interest rates, right? Is either that or like maybe you leverage it like a cosigner
Yeah.
or someone
Right,
you know
right.
with
Partner.
a
Yeah.
stronger credit profile that'll help you out, which I would recommend. Obviously, it's gonna have to be someone you trust, right? So, for my married people, maybe it's your spouse. Some people it might be a parent, but it has to or a sibling, but it has to be someone that you can trust.
Nah,
Um,
that's a fact.
yeah, you leverage their credit, how y'all agree to, which is super common, right? In real estate, I don't want to say that kind of scare people off because a lot of people when they start their journey, a lot of people typically are either cash poor or credit poor, right?
Right.
So you will leverage that person's credit profile and then you pay them, right? Maybe you pay them on a refi. Maybe you give them some monthly installments when you get you collect your rent roll. However you divvy that up is completely up to you.
Nah, that's a fact. That's a fact. What else you got for us?
All right, we got another question about.
So hold on. Let me rewind. So with me, with mobile home investing, you can definitely leverage you know, credit cards, cash advances, and you know, liquidate assets. But more so with me, I'm leveraging my skill set to get private money, right? Private money is people that's just looking to invest, right? They're looking to personal people. It can be, you know, a family member, a friend, or any personal investors that's looking to put some money out and get some money back without doing any work, right? So with mobile home investing, since it's affordable, like I'm getting into my deals with about, you know, between 1 to 2, 3, maybe up to $7,000, you know, right now on the high end, you know. So I'm not getting into credit cards as much. I'm using private money, right? Because there's people that have money sitting around and they do not know what to do with it, right? So I'm letting people know, like, hey, I know how to take your money and utilize my skill set to make you more money. So for example, you know, I'll get Molly, right? Molly, you give me $3,000 up front. I'll use that $3,000 to purchase the property. Ant will give me $3,000 as well. I'll use Ant's $3,000 to fix up the property, right? And then I'll sell the property for $20,000, and I'll give both Ant and Molly their $3,000 back plus $1,000, right? And now Ant and Molly made $1,000 for doing nothing, and now I got the property, you know, without any money out of my pocket. So you definitely can utilize your skill set and credit with mobile home investing as well.
Yeah, I mean, you referred to it as private money. I referred to it as like angel investors
Right.
earlier. Yeah, I mean, it's all the same stuff. I've definitely leveraged private money, I guess, in that regard. It's something that I use actually like pretty frequently now to close my deals.
Right.
The more credibility you build and the better your reputation becomes as an investor, the easier it is to find money.
Exactly.
We talked about it like on our, I guess, the episode that we highlighted, like money, right? Like
Right.
in a real estate game, like the hardest part is finding a deal. You always can find the money. And sometimes people with money kind of
Nah, that's a
don't
fact.
really understand that. But
Right.
the money is the easy part.
sure.
Once you get to a certain point, in the investing journey.
Nah, that's a fact.
All right. So the next question we got from one of our followers was in regards to like end buyers, Like, how are y'all sourcing,
Mhm.
I guess your target in regards to like people that you're ultimately selling to or
Okay.
renting to, at least in my case.
You want me? So with me, it's not like I'm targeting a specific end buyer. So with wholesaling, like I get deals all throughout the city of Philadelphia, Delco, Chester County, this, that, and the third. So I've built like my social media platforms up to where like I put a deal up and a lot of buyers already follow me that, buy in a certain area. Or like I've joined so many Facebook groups where I've put a certain amount of deals in there where like buyers then added me on Facebook and I'll post a deal on my, as a status or whatever. And I have 10, 15 buyers hit me up to where, you know what I mean? I'm sending them that deal. I also have platforms. I use PropWire, PropStream, where I'll pull a list of buyers. Say if I'm pulling a list of buyers in the 19143 zip code, it'll tell me that I gotta skip trace it, and then I'll shoot that deal to them directly as well. So that's kind of how I'm finding my end buyers. Kind of how I took that question, but I'm not really targeting a certain area to get that, to find that end buyer.
Are you always selling to investors, or do you ever use like sell to like a traditional and buy someone that's using
So
like a 2 or 3K something?
yeah. So I do some novations, which novation is basically instead of me offering cash for that deal, I'm telling that seller that I'm actually going to essentially list it or sell to an end buyer, but I'm cutting out the fees of a realtor, this, that, and the third. So like say if the house is in good condition, um, and on the market it might sell for 160, but it still needs some paint, this, that, and the third. What I'm gonna do is I would want to get it for 80 for cash, but if I'm gonna do a novation, I get it for 95, right? And I put it on the market for call it 135, where it's still under the the threshold of on the market, and it's still gonna go fast. But I might sell that to a traditional buyer where they're gonna qualify for funding, but I'm still gonna make a nice little spread. My buyers is gonna be happy because they getting a cheaper house, and the sellers is getting a higher price point, and I'm still getting that deal done, really quickly. So that's called a novation.
So are you increasing the time on your assignment? Because those mortgages you
Mhm.
typically take a little bit
Yeah,
longer.
and with a novation, it's not called an assignment. So it's called like I think I do like a marketing fee or something like that. Because mortgages, if it's a traditional mortgage, you're not going to approve it.
Okay.
Though you can't get paid an assignment through a loan from the bank. They'll automatically chalk it. So it's called like a marketing fee. And that's how I get paid on there. But I do like 60 days, 90 days. You gotta when you talking to that seller, you gotta make sure that their motivation. You gotta find out their motivation and their points. But typically, it's not time, and it just might be a headache of that property. And I'm telling them, listen, cash we can do this, but if you want more money, this is the other alternative. So that's kind of how I'm doing those.
Do you care who like they're sourcing their mortgage from?
Nah, I don't care. As long as I get paid at the end of the day, I don't even worry about that, bro.
All right. So with me, with mobile home investing, my target buyers are people that's looking for affordable housing, but they have a little cash set aside, right?
Mhm.
So these are people that don't want to pay high rents, right? They don't want to pay 2,400 for a 3 bedroom to where in 3-4 years that's gonna be $3,000,
Mhm.
right? They also don't want to pay $15,000-$20,000 on a down payment for a house, and then now they're locked into a 28 $100 mortgage for the next 30 years, right? So with mobile home investing, um you own the mobile home, you don't own the land that the home sits on, right?
Right.
So with the land that the home sits on is called a lot, and you have to pay lot rent every month to have your home sitting on that lot. But lot rents are way, way less expensive than rent in the area and the 30-year mortgage as well.
Mm.
So they can, come to me and they could buy a house from 15 to, let's say, average $25,000, right? Cash, because they have the cash set aside. And then after that, they're just looking to pay $500 to maybe $800 a month for the home, right? So they're just, they might be on a fixed income or whatever the situation is. They're just paying that $500 to $800 a month, right? And then they actually own something. So years later down the line, if they want to move, they actually could sell, that asset. So that's kind of like what I'm looking for.
Okay. So for me, end buyers, right? Well, in most cases, I mean, I just tapped into some flips, but with the BRRRR strategy, mine would be an end renter, right? I guess from how I'm targeting, I guess my renters or I guess future tenants, right? One, I'm trying to provide affordable housing, like Lim said, right? And I'm trying to provide a good product. Like, I hate the term like slumlord or people that don't like maintain their properties or they like putting people in like weird living situations. I try to my goal with this real estate, stuff is to develop, create like decent living situations and obviously like make money in the interim, right? Um After the properties are renovated, I usually will take them to like I have a tenant placement agency. I've also used like my property manager who's also a realtor in some regard, and it gets marketed out. Ultimately, as a landlord, you have two decisions, right? Whether it's going to be a cash paying tenant or Section 8. Some people have preferences, right? Some people rely more on the cash side because, right? Or some people just prefer Section 8 because of the money's automated. You kind of have your pick. I feel like with in regards to cash, right? People usually typically have stronger requirements in regards to things like credit, and employment, right? Employment history, things like that, versus like a voucher. I've kind of seen the opposite, right? Like credit isn't as big of a factor. If they do have good credit, that's always a plus. But it's more, I guess, more about the voucher amount, right? And bedroom amount on the voucher, right? Because vouchers typically go based off bedroom size, right? So someone comes to you, if I have a 3-bedroom house, that doesn't necessarily mean that they qualify for a 3-bedroom voucher, right? So ideally, you're looking for someone, if you have a 3-bedroom property, which is like the standard, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You're looking for someone with a 3-bedroom voucher. Another thing I typically ask for is like utility bills to make sure they kind of up to par with that. If it is a voucher holder, and then like I referenced in the last episode, right? Like I was dealing with a tenant placement agency that will go to people's previous or current address, right? The address that they're moving from, and seeing how they're maintaining that. And I usually give like a indicator of how they'll treat my property when they move in. Because there is like the stereotype that like with Section 8 that they're gonna destroy your property,
which isn't true.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. So but that's one of the ways we can kind of dispel that, right? Like if we go to that person's crib, we see how they live, and if they're maintaining, taking pride with their living situation, I'm completely comfortable with me renting out to them. And that's pretty much it. I mean, some people do have smaller things that they prefer, pets or no pets. I don't really care.
For sure.
So quick question though. When you buying, right? Like in Philly, we do our PHA, they divide it by like each zip code is in a certain group. You get higher rent for if you're in group 4 versus group 1, because group 1 in the lower area. So like when you buying like your target area you buying in, is it based on certain zip codes that get more rent?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, Baltimore, Philly, I'm sure the audience wouldn't agree depending on where you're from. It's the same thing, correct? So what I will say is that I don't like to like necessarily buy in certain zip codes, right? Certain zip codes are gonna generate higher rents, right? And it's also like I guess like certain that's also gonna be equated with like how safe certain neighborhoods are, which is also usually associated with like appreciation. So I kind of know like I kind of established like where I want to buy to certain zip codes, and those are the zip codes that I could try to focus on, right? To answer your question. Now, in regards to those particular zip codes, when I'm doing my due diligence, when I go on the Section 8 website, usually like I could go on that website, I could type in that particular address, type in I'll enter the amount of bedrooms, and then it'll give me a range.
Okay, I got you.
For that particular address based off of its location. And then you usually get like a range. It's usually like a $400 like range, right? So like the deal that I'm working on now, right? The range is like 1,900 to 2,300. Where you as a landlord, where your voucher amount will come back out is based off the finishes in the property. So if you have a property, right, like let's say like you got peel and stick floors, white appliances, like bare minimum, finishes, you're probably gonna be closer to that lower area versus like if you do your cords, no floors, cabinets, all the bells and whistles, the nicer stuff. That's what's going to put you closer to 2,300.
makes
So
Right.
for me, it's like once again, like putting in materials and finishes that's gonna get me to the higher ends of those ranges without overspending.
I got you.
Another thing too with the bird stuff, little again note to the audience is you don't want to over renovate, right? So like I said, you want to find a compromise of renovating, having good quality work, but also not over renovating,
Facts.
being
So
cost effective.
yeah, so people are always looking for a place to live. Real estate has been here forever, and real estate is always going to be here forever. So that's why we're into real estate investing, right? So I don't think any of us is having a problem with, finding renters or finding buyers, right?
No.
Exactly. You're just gonna get the buyer or the renter according to the quality of your property. Like when Ann said, if you're looking for a certain level or a certain amount of rent, you're gonna fix it up to a certain amount, right? So we're not having any problem at all,
That's a fact, bro.
for sure. So it's a great field to be in. Tap
Alright.
in.
Molly, tell the people where they can find you at.
You can find me at Molly5. Keep asking us questions, man. We're gonna keep doing episodes just answering questions. But at Molly5, you can find me on Instagram.
You can find me at Young Lum on Instagram, and make sure y'all are following and subscribing to the Money Room Pod, right? Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to the channel. You do not want to miss any insights, and turn your post notifications on as well.
You can find me at Living Good Ant. Like Molly said, access to questions. We definitely look forward to doing more episodes like this where we can answer y'all questions. Make sure y'all tap into the course where we break down our step-by-step guide on how to utilize all three different investment strategies.
Appreciate y'all for tapping in.